Hello everybody, my name is Amir Hossein Zamanian. I'm an assistant professor at the Department of Physics and Engineering at the University of Scranton, Pennsylvania. Today I am going to quickly present our research with Dr. Edmond Riher. Soft robotic is a new research area with the potential of revolutionizing the way human works and cooperate with robots. We can make soft robotics actuator out of rubber material without using a lot of complicated components such as tendons, pulleys, gears, and rigid bodies. Compared to rigid robots, there are some fundamental challenges in soft robotics. There is no general method for modeling and simulation of soft continuum bodies. Many soft actuators work based on pressurized fluid that requires fluid transportation through relatively small or long conduits that limits the robot's size, speed, and efficiency. Muscular hydrostats are a biological structure found in animals such as arms and tentacles of cephalopods, the elephant proboscis, the tongues of reptiles and mammals. It is used to manipulate objects such as food or to translate its host, usually without skeletal support. Muscular hydrostats perform its hydraulic movement without fluid in a separate compartment, as in hydrostatic skeleton. They are capable of remarkable complexity of movement such as bending, elongation, shortening, and twisting without skeletal support. The most important biomedical feature of a muscular hydrostat is its constant volume due to incompressibility of muscle material at physiological pressure. Recently, Akomi presented a self-filling mechanism by filling a dielectric liquid such as a transformer oil inside the dielectric chamber and partially covering the opposing sides by the electrodes. Therefore, when a high electric voltage is applied to the electrode, the center region that are covered by electrodes will attract each other electrostatically because of the induced Maxwell stress, and the uncovered of the actuator will inflate because of the induced hydraulic pressure in the dielectric liquid. The animation here is related to a multi-physics simulation in our previous study showing how the peripheral region of a hydraulically amplified dielectric elastomer actuator is moving by variation of voltage applied on the electrode on both sides. So we proposed an actuator design that includes a hyperelastic silicon membrane enclosing a dielectric liquid filled chamber and pair of elastic annular electrodes partially covering the opposing surfaces of the membrane. The hydrostat muscle inspired us to stack and segment the HADI actuator to make soft robots and to benefit the dexterity in these soft robot manipulators. So not only we can get expansion in this robot, but also we can get more dexterity and we can have bending as the results of this segmentation. Therefore, we stacked soft robots in the 2D structure as you can see in the figures. So not only we can have the expansion, but also we can have bending in this actuator. So if I take a closer look at this actuator, I can see that in each unit we have two actuators, one in the right and one in the left, and it's separated from the others by use of two rigid plates. So if I magnify one of them, you can see there is a sliding, there is a flexible spine, there is a thin rigid plate and a frictionless contact between this plate, and the actuator can inflate in the left and right direction, in the left and the right side independently. And we determine the parameters of this actuator such as the inflation radius of the balloons, inflated balloons, and then the other geometrical parameters. So the kinematic analysis and control of soft robot with different kinematic description and large number of degrees of freedom are much more complicated than rigid link robots. A common approach that allows closed form forward kinematic analysis in wide variety of continuum robots is to approximate the robot with a series of mutually tangent constant curvature arcs that are known as piecewise constant curvature. And then in general, forward kinematic is straightforward. We start from the radii of the actuator, we find the arc parameters, and then we find the position or an orientation of the robot in the task space. So if we do that, we can get this geometrical relationship. We found that out for this specific actuator. And then if we have this, we can stack these actuators together one over each other by several coordinate transformation. And therefore, we came up with a recursive expression for determination of the position of the robot in the space. Using that, we can determine the robot in its workspace by changing the radii of the actuator. For example, if we vary all of the radii together in the robot, we can get this simple schematic. And then the challenge is the inverse kinematic analysis. Conversely, the inverse kinematic mapping usually is not unique and easy definable. So in this case, we wanted to start from the task space, determine the configuration space, and then go to see which radii each actuator should have in the actuator space. And that is not a unique solution and it's very challenging. So the conventional solution for inverse kinematic is to use Euler Bernoulli beam curvature as a solution. But if we do that for this type of actuator, due to the limitations that this actuator have, the point and the orientation that we are expecting the actuator to be might not be possible because some of the constraint in the actuator will not be satisfied due to the constraint of the actuators. So we came up with a chain-like optimization with an embedded controller inverse kinematic. Basically, the idea is that we consider this actuator's unit as a connection of the rigid links that the links can be changed in the length and the revolute joints, and we impose some constraint to satisfy the limitations for the actuator, the physical limitations for the actuator. And if we do that, we can have this constraint that is, the detail is in the paper. And therefore, we came up with an algorithm that can adjust the position of the actuator starting with the initial Euler-Bernoulli solution and then trying to optimize the position based on the constraints that are defined in the paper. You can see this is the solution. For example, the center is the solution of our proposed algorithm that satisfies the curvature limitation. And what you can see in the right is the solution of the Euler-Bernoulli beam, which does not consider the limitations of the soft robot. So therefore, in this case, we will have a better adjustment and better positioning of the actuator in the desired position as we are expecting, theoretically with zero error in positioning in a smooth workspace. And then if we compare this with our initial solution using the Euler-Bernoulli beam, you can see how does our algorithm work in the right compared to the Euler-Bernoulli beam solution to the left. So the red coordinate systems are basically our end-effector position, and the desired end-effector position are blue coordinates. So in conclusion, we propose a hydrostat-inspired soft robot manipulator design by stacking planar segments composed of two hydraulically amplified dielectric elastomer actuators in each unit. And then we developed the forward kinematics equation using the piecewise constant curvature theory. And then we proposed a novel iterative technique that we call a chain-like optimization with an embedded controller to obtain functionally constrained optimal solution to the inverse kinematics problem. And that's all. Thank you so much.